go ahead and kick off. Yep, we are recording this meeting now. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to 1 Million Cups Westminster. I am Graham Dodge, the Executive Director of our community sponsor, MAGIC, the Mid-Atlantic Gigabit Innovation Collaboratory. I'm the lead organizer here, joined by my fellow organizers who make this all possible, all on a volunteer basis. If this is your first time attending our meeting, for those of you who attend 5 of these in a row, you get a free 1 Million Cups travel mug. And then if you're presenting for the first time, you get a free 1 Million Cups ceramic mug for joining us today. If you attend 10 of these in a row, you get a 1 Million Cups t-shirt. Also, we have a coffee sponsor. Normally these meetings would be held in person, but since the pandemic, we've been doing these through Zoom. And our coffee sponsor is called Furnace Hills Coffee. They have generously offered 25% off all of your online orders with the discount code 1MC Westminster. And we will have somebody in a moment post that there. Yep, thank you, Julius. So in the chat there is a link to furnacehillscoffee.com. They roast coffee right here in Westminster. And you get 25% off your entire order if you use that code 1MC Westminster. All right, so I will kick it over now to Julia Snap, one of our fellow organizers, to just briefly explain what 1 Million Cups is. So Julius, go ahead and share your screen and take it away.
All right. All right, so good morning, everyone. Always a pleasure to see everyone here on Wednesday. I hope the weather is a little bit nicer wherever you are. And welcome to 1MC Westminster. So I'm just going to go over some of our mission and our core pillars. Our mission here at 1MC Westminster is to lower the barrier for access to education, resources, and connections for entrepreneurs. Without the core pillars, this mission cannot succeed. Our pillars are, we're looking for presentations, not pitches. We're looking to connect, not network. And our culture is, we're for the community, by the community. We really want to get to know your business so we can connect you with all of the resources that our community has to offer. Nobody here has ownership of 1MC Westminster. Nobody here is paid to do 1MC Westminster, and we're radically and intentionally inclusive. It's really everyone here that makes 1MC Westminster possible, and we're always looking for like-minded, business-minded people. We meet every week, Wednesdays at 9 a.m., which you all know, here we are. We try to have 2 presenters whenever possible. Presenters organization should be less than 5 years old and willing to ask for help. We always end each Q&A period with the question, what can we as a community do to help you? And here's our organizers: Graham Dodge, Russ Hammett, Val Giovanni, John Wheatman, Mick Mancuso, me, Julia Snap, and our newest organizer, Tina Thomas. And there you have it. Back to you, Graham.
Thank you very much, Julius. And without further delay, we will go ahead and kick it over to Dr. Davida Anderson to present Strong Sister, Silly Sister. Go ahead, Dr. Anderson, take it away. And everyone else, please mute. And any questions you have, throw them in the chat box. Thank you.
That's okay, Graham. A lot of people get tongue-tied on Strong Sister, Silly Sister. Good morning. I'm Davida Anderson. And imagine being on a college campus, not really knowing anybody, and trying to figure out where to go, what to do, and what to embrace. And oftentimes, college can be a very rewarding, but also can be a very scary time for a lot of individuals. And so Strong Sister, Silly Sister is a CAN program, student-driven, that helps particularly college women embrace ethical choices in college to become their best self holistically. So what does that mean? Spiritually, health-wise, as well as pursuing their academic achievement. And so the way that Strong Sister, Silly Sister got started is when I was also a college student, I looked around in my environment and recognized that something was missing. I was seeing a lot of students, particularly college women, getting entangled into decisions that they weren't really prepared for. And so I thought, why not write a program that can help them become their best self and encourage others to do the same? And so Strong Sister, Silly Sister, again, is a student-driven program where I train college women to present to their peers. And they discuss topics that can help them become their best version of themselves, including leadership development skills, because they're teaching other people about material related to mental health, related to the best study skills, related to how to get the best score on your GMAT, as well as mentoring each other. In addition, we have a mini fashion show to discuss how do you show up and present your best self in a classroom, in an interview, all the way to the boardroom. And so these students have the opportunity to capitalize on that. And then personal growth. So personal growth in these leadership development does not only occur for the participants that come, but also for the facilitators. And so again, they're able to hound on these skills to continue to develop into becoming their best self. And then connecting the students with whatever the resources are on that college campus. So it's not just their resource or counseling services that are on campus, but also within the community, wherever that college institution is housed. And then in addition, providing national resources to help them continue to figure out how to maximize their potential. Strong Sister, Silly Sister really is empowering college women. And we have a hyper focus specifically on African American women at historically white institutions. So imagine again, being on a college campus and having the world at your oyster, but not really knowing who to turn to for questions, and being less than 3% of that population on that campus. That creates a unique experience. And so again, we have a hyper focus on this population to making sure that we provide these additional skill sets and supports to them. And I wish I could share the voices of the participants, but I'll do my best to share. A participant said, the Strong Sister, Silly Sister program is a great way to bring women together and to inspire them to succeed academically, socially, emotionally, and mentally. And that is the purpose of our entire program, to bring a nucleus of students together and to help them to continue to develop these skills in all these areas. And again, it's a CAN program. So how do we do it? Well, one, we have reactive measures. So for example, when we had the pandemic, we ended up having a self-care week. We had different panelists come and speak to the college women, and they were able to get not only affirmation, but also get practical skills to help them through the pandemic. And in addition to our program, the 2-hour CAN program that we do on college campuses that students are trained on, we also have motivation through our blog posts that students can continue to read that speak to different various things related to spirituality, related to academics, related to their personal pursuits. And then also we have a blog, a podcast that students could tap into as well. And then we also have our sister support, which is a mentor-mentee program that students can benefit from alum that are in our program. And this program is going on to its 17th year. And so we are still a young nonprofit, however, because we provide scholarships, and we have not always provided scholarships during the whole time, but we have done that over the last 6 years. So again, this is the how we do it. And this is the opportunity for you, I hope, to learn a little bit more than beyond what I shared already this morning with you through going to www.strongsistersillysister.org to learn a lot more about what our program can do, not only for the college women who have already participated, but for those college women who will be those that we touch in the future. And again, our whole premise is to embrace ethical choices, to become our best self, and to encourage others to do the same. And we believe that if you build strong sisters, that's truly how you build strong foundations. Thank you so much for your time.
Great job, Dr. Anderson. Thank you very much. So anyone who has questions for Davida, for Dr. Anderson, you can put them there in the chat, and I will read them aloud for everybody. Right away, Tina Thomas, a fellow new 1MC organizer and from Infinite Love Project and the Be Kind Signs, asks, what size college fits your program best?
Great question. So our current programming has been housed on Big Ten institutions. So if you imagine, that's over 30,000 for both of those institutions. And on there, the population, again, our hyper focus is on Black women, but of course, all college women attend our programs, and that population is less than 3% on those size of college campuses. Great question.
I have a question, actually. I'm going to kind of, this may almost be a little ignorant of me because I'm basing this off of something I heard about once. But as I understand, back in the day, there were these things called finishing schools for women. And I understand that they are long gone now because of the sexism, and some implications about them being basically groomed to be housewives or secretaries or whatever. But I remember hearing something about them where there were certain qualities that they did, like skills that they did teach women, that I felt like they kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater, perhaps, based on what limited knowledge I have of them. Is there any connection at all between this being like a modern twist on the finishing school in terms of teaching certain types of ethics or values or anything like that? Do you see it that way at all?
Appreciate your question. No, this program is more geared towards, so again, I'll go back to this. I was a student who was on historically white college campus. And so although my habitus and my upbringing was in a predominantly white space, I recognize that often on that type of campus, a lot of Black women particularly do not have the social capital nor the ways to know how to navigate structural and systemic challenges that exist in those spaces, right? And so for me, my parents always raised me to think about the least of us. So I started thinking about somebody who came from the opposite, a predominantly Black space, and now they're on a historically white campus. I started thinking about those women who just naturally, like all of us, have choices once we get to college about setting our own schedule. Like, will we go to class? Because nobody's going to get us up, right? Do we study? Or do we go to the party? Or do we study first, then go to the party? So it really came from just having conversations. I was one of those students on campus. I ran track at a large Big Ten institution. And I was also involved in student organizations. And I was also had my heart and hands in the community. So people would talk to me about their issues. And I was like, there needs to be a program to respond to this. And so that's where it kind of stemmed from me thinking about, okay, and now as a scholar, now as an educator, I get where my program, even though I didn't have all of the language then, it really is speaking to the systemic challenges that exist on those campuses. And it's also helping them to create a community where they can thrive and feel comfortable first, to then go into these classrooms where oftentimes they're given and having to deal with macro and micro structural challenges that other people do not have. So really, Graham, that's probably more where it stems from. Again, I value being my best self. I always try to call my inner self to become my best self, to come up higher. And I tend to try to be that cheerleader around my friend group. So I was the same person when I was in college, right? And I wanted others to look at their potential of where they could be, of the best version, and not the best version of me, right? Because strong sister, silly sister also is not saying that you're perfect.
Right.
It's saying that you're striving to be a strong sister. It's saying that you'll make silly decisions, but you can be a strong sister. And so that's the premise of the program.
Very good. And Rick Leinbach from Startup Portal asks, how many college campuses participate in the program? Do you have any stats on retention rates of the women who stay all 4 years?
Right. Yeah, no, great question. And so I've been, during the time, like I said, I started the program when I was in undergrad. So during the span of now and then, I have gotten a few degrees. And so now we're at a place where it has been on 2 campuses, 2 Big Ten campuses so far in this past year. because of the pandemic, we ended up opening it up virtually. And so we had an additional 7 campuses involved, and that was really cool. But as far as retention rate, I can tell you this. The students who come as freshmen, because that tends to be our first introduction to Strong Sister, Silly Sister, 4 years. And so we take the span of that, and I don't have my calculations in front of me, so I would give you a number, but if you would walk with me to understand that those who get involved their freshman year and come as participants, by the time they leave, they're saying, what can I do to be involved? And they're inspired to give back. And so I always tell students that, you don't have to pay. I mean, we're a nonprofit, small 501c3 nonprofit. You don't have to pay. But the ask is, how can you help somebody else? That's the ask. So if you want to become a mentor, if you want to become a facilitator, and so to answer your question, yes, once they come into our program, we have seen students either return for the next participation year, either engage on our platforms of social media or on our blog posts, on our website, or definitely ask to be a facilitator, and we train them. Does that answer your question?
I believe it looks like it does. He just waved. Yeah. And I think those are great key performance indicators regardless, return rate, and do they basically convert to being volunteers themselves to give back. Those are great indicators of success. Okay, Scott Singleton from Burke, the Business Employer Resource Center, Employment Resource Center, asks, are first generation college students one of your primary participants in the program?
So yes, they're a part of our population, but surprisingly, overwhelmingly, there's not necessarily saying that those two are in tangent. So for example, I was like that too, making sure that particularly first generation who do not have that opportunity that I had with my social capital in my family. Both my parents had master's degrees. So they were able to provide a certain social capital to me about what to expect to go to college and who to navigate and how to navigate and who to speak to and who to build relationships with. So I had that at home, right? But I knew that some may not. But by far, a lot of our students who participate in the program, some of them fall into that category, but I would say a majority of them do have parents who have already had prior education.
Great. Katie Kirby, who's the executive director of another local nonprofit, Together We Own It, and a past presenter here at 1 Million Cups, asks, how is the program funded? What every executive director of a nonprofit wants to know.
Absolutely, Katie, because I'm an executive director as well as Strong Sister, Silly Sister, and I thought you would never ask. So we are funded by private donors. So we really are so grateful for our private donors. And then also in the past, we have teamed up with organizations like Walmart have donated to us. Davis Bridal has donated to us. Amazon is a partner who donates through Amazon Smile, where you can add Strong Sister, Silly Sister as a 501c. And whenever you shop, a percentage of that goes towards our organization. And so again, between those major platforms, but beyond that, we have really been blessed with private donors who donate towards us. And again, as a college administrator, I know for a fact that the difference between somebody stopping out of college can be sometimes $500. Sometimes it can be $200. And so we provide scholarships to make sure that students can maintain their college pursuits and stay in college. So thanks, Katie, for the question.
And then Tina has a follow-up question. Do you have chapters, and do you have any versions of the program in historically Black colleges and universities to assist and support programs in the historically white colleges and universities?
Great question. So as I alluded to, I'm grateful that I think for now, I'm probably going to take a pause on my own personal educational pursuits. So what does that mean? That means that we're actually in a year with our board and with our student leadership to ramp it up. And that has always been a goal. And as you go onto our website, you'll see that part of our vision is to be on college campuses across the nation. So to answer your question, we look forward to pursuing those. Now that I have a little bit of more time, that's definitely going to be on our radar to build chapters on different campuses, but that's a part of our business model, yes. And the last question, sorry, Graham, the last question about HBCUs. HBCUs, let me get to that question. You said, have any aversion program been at HBCUs to assist and support programs in historically white campuses? Can you tell me a little bit more about that last part? Because I get that you're asking if they're on HBCUs, but your last part of that question, can you clarify?
Go ahead,
Well, I
Tina.
was just curious, in the environment, in the culture that you found yourself in a historically white college, how does that differ from historically Black college, the culture and the camaraderie and the support? And is there, were you looking to, in your growth, institute some programs and supports from historically Black colleges to bring that knowledge and that experience into the programs you're putting together in the white colleges?
Well, I think that, Tina, nationally, so a lot of scholarship, empirical research will suggest that there is a lot of benefits that come out of bringing together a group that does not have to explain their experience to others, right? When they are a minority. And so what happens on a historically Black institution is that, one, no group is monolithic, right? That there's a lot of diversity within all groups, right? We all represent some type of different identities here today, but we're all diverse in a lot of different ways. And so what a historically Black institution does is to show you Blackness in a variety of different ways. And what does that do? That probably affirms somebody's ability to believe in themselves and the acceptance, to be told that you can, and to look around and to see positive examples of what it means to be Black. And so that happens naturally on HBCUs. I'm a product of HBCU. My parents met on HBCU. So shout out to Savannah State College, with Savannah State University now, and they do wonderful things. So that happens nationally on HBCU, but at a historically white institution, we have to be more intentional about that. And so Strong Sister, Silly Sister is actually that model where we create a space for all of those things that I described. And again, empirical research goes into more details about that. Sitting at the cafeteria table, what that looks like. Why? Because again, you don't have to explain certain things. However, you do have different lived experiences because of your other identities and the intersectionality of those. But yes, Strong Sister, Silly Sister is a model of bringing that into a historically white institution.
Excellent. I love the whole concept. So I'm wondering if some people, some organizations that pop out of the HBCUs would want to support you. If you'd go to them and say, hey, this is what I'm doing, from a nonprofit standpoint, you look for where you can get your support. So bravo to what you're doing. I love it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tina. And Jennifer Young from Covalent Spirits and the Entrepreneur in Residence at McDaniel College says, hi, Davida. If you are exploring a Westminster-based initiative, look into Hey Westminster for grant opportunities. So heywestminster.com. And Jennifer is on their board of trustees, and they award, I think, between $1,000 to $2,500 or up to $5,000 now. It's these mini grants that they provide to projects and initiatives that are kind of growing out of the Westminster community. So definitely check that out if you're looking for an opportunity to expand here in Westminster.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's hey Davida, how you doing?
Nice to see you again.
We met last week actually at the yes, right. we had a nice chat last week. So it is $1,000 for initiatives, but we do have a separate that we'll be kind of doing more PR on, but we do have a separate grant channel dedicated to nonprofits, and that will be a $5,000 grant each time, 4 times a year. So that is in partnership with the Keller Foundation. So this is a 501c3. Our stipulation is that it is something that's focused on making Westminster more awesome. But take a look. I know we chatted about this last week a little bit, but if any questions, just holler. Let me know.
Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Thank you, Jen. All right. Well, we are at the time now where we basically ask you, Dr. Anderson, what can our community do for you? And that was a good segue in talking about Westminster.
Absolutely. So I already kind of shared, this year, we're focusing on scaling up. So although we're headed into our 17th year and we have been doing great with programming and making sure that we live up to our mission every single year, we're at that place of making sure that the nation knows about us. And why? Because we've been able to be sustainable where we are with our current partnerships, but always looking to build additional partnerships and to expand on other college campuses. So that's where we are. So I'm always open to learn. I'm a lifelong learner as an educator. And so if there is any type of feedback, advice that you can give about, scaling up, increasing social media reach, that's another way. Although I look a lot younger than most of you think, I am not a person who engages in social media because I have a natural affinity. It's because I have to. And so therefore I tap into our student leadership a lot, and we have these conversations all the time because a lot of them were born in the womb with social media, right? And so we're working on increasing that reach now, but again, scaling up not only our reach and connection, because I just shared with you a snippet of participants' response. But if you go onto our website, you'll see more, and a lot of students who attend, and it doesn't even matter if they are first year students, graduate students, or like where they are on the spectrum, they all say, I walk away every single year with more introspection. I walk away every year with thinking about how I can get better. I'm grateful for this community and this space. And if I didn't have that, I don't know if I would have succeeded, because they looked at me and they saw me and they also supported me. And so again, I'm open to scaling up if you have any advice on that.
Great. Thank you very much. And actually, Scott just added that a meetup might be, or meetup, I guess the platform meetup might be a good platform to scale. Use that platform. So thank you, Dr. Anderson, very much for presenting today. Great job. And thank you for bringing this program to us today and for bringing yourself to Carroll County and the Carroll Community College. I'm so glad to have you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Let's go ahead and kick it over to Dr. Andrew Cameron. And Dr. Cameron, I see you are ready to go. You can go ahead and share your screen. Everybody else will go on mute and save your comments for the chat.
Well, Graham, thanks very much for having us here. My name is Andrew Cameron, and I'm a transplant surgeon at Johns Hopkins. I'm here with Julia Lopez and Layla Herbst, who are two members of the research team. And I also want to say I really enjoyed that last presentation. We're going to tell you about our problems today, just what you needed to hear. So let me walk you through a solution that we have come up with to a horrible, horrible problem. Okay, so that problem is shown here. There is a public health crisis, catastrophe taking place in the United States right now, in which there are over 100,000 Americans on an organ transplant wait list. So these are folks that need a kidney transplant, a liver transplant, maybe a heart transplant, and 20 of them die every day for lack of a transplantable organ. So we'll have a nice conversation this morning, talk for an hour, come up with some good ideas. Somebody will die during that hour, not because modern medicine doesn't know how to fix them, but simply because there are not enough organs to go around. The top line that you can maybe see is the number of folks on the wait list, way over 100,000. The bottom two lines are the sources of those organs, either folks in blue that donate after they die, or folks in yellow that are living donors, which will be the focus of what I mentioned in terms of the donor app today. Any questions, stop me, scream out, put them in the chat, whatever, because some of this stuff I'll move through pretty quickly. So it turns out that there aren't enough donors to go around. Maybe everybody already knew that. It's not entirely intuitive, but we ask people at the DMV, I guess, In some ways, that is a horrible place to ask people an intimate question. You've been waiting in line, sort of hot and bothered for 2 hours. Hey, can I also have your organs? You want to check this box? Not surprisingly, we don't get everybody to say yes. There is probably a better way to ask. Ask folks where they are more comfortable and more thoughtful, maybe at home in front of their computer or on their phone. So we teamed up with Facebook in 2011 and decide they were gracious enough to actually alter the Facebook platform so that in addition to specifying, where you went to school or what music you like, you could specify that you were an organ donor. With that little tweak of their online platform, folks were told, hey, Andrew Cameron just signed up to be an organ donor. Would you like to learn more about this or do the same yourself? We assayed all state online registries, all 50 online registries after Facebook made this small change, and online donation rates went up 21-fold. So that was a promissory note that this was a communication problem or an education problem, and that powerful new platforms of communication, namely social media, could help us. All right, now, truth in advertising. If everybody went out and signed up to be an organ donor, that wouldn't help the folks who need one today. But the good news is there's an even better way to help those folks, and that's with living donation. So over the last 20 years, it's become very, very safe, for example, to donate a kidney. So of the 120,000 people waiting for an organ in the US, 100,000 wait for a kidney. And it is minimally invasive and safe now to donate a kidney. It's not too much riskier than donating a unit of blood. And it turns out the kidney you get is better than the one you would get from somebody who died and donated. So there's the living donation route could really end the organ donation crisis. So we went back to the social media well and we developed the donor app, and that's what I'll mention in the next 2 minutes. The donor app is a smartphone app that is intended for a recipient on a transplant waiting list to use to help tell their story in the hopes of harnessing their social network to identify an appropriate living donor. So you kind of get the idea. It's not very complicated. You download the app to your phone. I'm a recipient. I need a kidney. Tell us about yourself. Well, I'm on dialysis 3 times a week. I can no longer go fishing with my grandson. Here's a picture or a video. And if this speaks to you, here is a link to my recipient transplant center where you can learn more about the evaluation process and consider being my living donor. Not much more to it than that. We piloted this at Johns Hopkins. We took 52 patients that were on our transplant wait list that had been on the list for 2 years and had no donor, and compared them to a group of folks that were identical but didn't use the app. The folks that used the app were 6.6 times more likely to have a donor come forward. This is what it would look like. We'd get a room full of folks together. I'd give them this sort of shtick. We'd help them download the app. We'd help them make a post. And sometimes by the time they were driving home to their house, they had 2 people come forward and say, I knew nothing about this. I'd love to help. How do I help? So it is all about communication. It is all about harnessing your social network. And this is an electronic online way to do that. The app is now under an NIH R01 funded study. It is a multi-center randomized controlled trial to demonstrate the efficacy of the app in a heterogeneous group of settings with different types of patients. In addition, it has been given out to 14 transplant centers. Over 1,000 patients have participated, and it is growing and spreading. This is sort of the idea of what it looks like. Folks use the app to create a post, add a picture. That's what the post looks like. In addition, the website keeps a collection of curated stories so that people can come and visit and see these compelling stories and say, hey, wow, I would like to help somebody like Kevin or Samantha or Ellen. How do I pitch in? I will share these stories to get the word out and spread the message, or maybe I will even consider being a donor myself. How do I learn more about what this entails? And this is sort of a picture of what it looks like to visit and educate people about donating their organs. So where are we now? Where are we going? We are moving this now-ish from essentially a research modus operandi in which transplant centers are giving out the app to their patients from retail to more wholesale, where folks would be downloading the app, from an app store or getting it via my chart without necessarily getting that presentation from me. The limitations, what we're fighting against are, again, it's an education problem. It's a communication problem. And we are working to sort of get this message out, or maybe more accurately, help people get their own message out. Folks, we designed the app to be labor unintensive and sort of something that anybody could do, but patients still have limitations. They may have technological limitations. They may be limited by their own social networks, and we're really interested in helping them get around those barriers. All right, so our next steps, we are giving it out more liberally. We've tried to do it in a very controlled way so that we could study it and make sure it's doing what we think it's doing, that we are broadening its reach. We are getting better at understanding why it works for some patients and not for others. And we're getting better at helping patients use the app effectively. It's kind of interesting to see, we've learned what makes for a good post. Some patients do too little, some do too much. We're able to help them write good stories that will be compelling. And then ultimately, we are trying to sort of continue this effort just to help patients that are dying on the list tell their story, because in fact there is a solution. We are not the solution. The solution's already out there. There are people that will help them, that will donate either within their social circle or beyond. And we're just trying to sort of, like Uber, there are folks that have cars and there are folks that need rides, and we're trying to bring them together. And that's what the app does. So with that, I can stop, and I'm thankful for the platform, and I'm more than happy to help clarify any of that, or what donor app does, or where it's going, if that's helpful.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Dr. Cameron. We may have an echo on another. If someone near you has their mic open, we might be getting the echo from that. So thank you very much. We do have some comments and questions right off the bat for you. Val Giovanni, one of our fellow organizers here at 1 Million Cups and a new recently promoted regional director at Ting Internet here, says, wow, absolutely amazing. Someone near and dear to my heart is alive thanks to a kidney transplant. Her twin is on the list and waiting, and it's scary, and I'm going to send this along. So thank you, Val, for sharing the donor app. Tina Thomas, again, with 1 Million Cups and Infinite Love Project, asks, what is the donor evaluation cycle, and is it a bottleneck?
So that's a great question. In reference to the first question, I sort of glossed over it, but I want to say something. Transplant is a modern medical miracle. So these patients are dying. They're not dying. They are certain to die with mathematical certainty, within months without a transplant. And transplant converts those folks to long-term survivors. They will be normal. They will watch their kids graduate from college, for example. They will wear normal clothes. They will go to movies. They will go on vacations. So it's a weird public health problem, because it's not a cancer that we can't cure in 2021. There is a cure already available, but for lack of sort of hooking people up. So it is a very unusual problem that we face. Now, the donor evaluation cycle is a bottleneck. Great question. Yes and no. So I could give you the data on how long it takes somebody to call Johns Hopkins and for them to get medically worked up and for them to be approved as appropriate. There is an intentional slowness or carefulness to that process, because donor safety is of paramount importance. So we want to encourage and facilitate donor consideration, but we want to make sure that as folks consider donating their organs, they are made carefully well aware of the risks of donation, and that they are not selected as a donor unless they are medically, socially, psychologically appropriate to be a donor. So I won't say it's a bottleneck, but I'll say it's careful. It's a careful process. And it typically, to give you an answer, it typically takes a couple months. It can be done quicker if it's an emergency, but and the person will die literally this weekend without a transplant. More often, especially in the case of kidney transplants, folks are on dialysis and they are dying on dialysis, but they can wait the 2 months it takes to be appropriate and careful and thoughtful about the donor. The biggest bottleneck by far is identifying an appropriate donor. That's where, folks wait.
Great question, Tina. Mark Weingram asks, is there retargeting of those for whom a recipient story resonates, but is not a match for the specific person they volunteer to assist?
That is such an awesome question. That is, you should come work with us. So, somebody puts out a compelling story. My 15-year-old kid needs a transplant. 200 people come forward. I want to help that kid. I can't sleep at night until I know that kid's okay. Well, we work up 10 people and we get somebody for the kid. What about those other, 199 people? And the answer is yes. Those folks are what we'll call non-directed donors. So the one that won the lottery, the wonderful privilege to save that kid's life, is a directed donor. They wanted to donate to that child. The other 199 could potentially be non-directed donors, which is you're not going to donate to that child, but you're going to save somebody else's life. Now that may seem awkward at first. You're just going to give your organ to whoever, but that's what blood donation is, right? You go to the Red Cross and you give a unit of blood. You don't say, this is for Sally Smith only. You say, I understand that there is a crisis and I want to help. And that is maybe the next frontier. So the app shows, using Facebook, shows the 300 people that are most likely to want to help because they're your friends, they're your family, they're emotionally connected. But interesting Gallup polling shows that if you just ask the public, there's somebody in need, would you be willing to help by donating an organ? A shocking percentage of the American public would be willing to help a stranger. It may reaffirm your faith in society, which may be flagging these days. But it's true, people will help, just like they'll donate a unit of blood. Now, I don't want to make light of it. Donating an organ, you say, is not like donating a unit of blood, but it has become very, very safe, for example, to donate a kidney. And that information about the risks and about what they're getting into is part of the important sort of donor preparation process.
Yeah, great question, Mark, and great, basically a great suggestion. And I will connect you with Dr. Cameron if you are interested in helping the donor team with suggestions like that. So Tina follows up with, and actually I can preface this question by saying, Tina, my son actually was born with one kidney and it's slightly enlarged. And I have my own questions for Dr. Cameron about that, but she's asking, how are you getting over the stigma that we are born with two kidneys and people who are scared and don't believe the safeness of living with only one? So how do you convince someone that, hey, you can live without this organ?
It's a great question. And I could show you actuarial survival data of folks that either had a nephrectomy for whatever reason or donated, and their survival curve is completely identical, superimposed on folks that have two kidneys. So the first thing we would have to do is have a very rational conversation about the risks of donation. And it's not meant to be pressured or overly persuasive. It's meant to provide data. And there's going to be a whole bunch of folks out there that say, thanks, it's not for me. And I don't want anybody to do anything they don't want to do. There's going to be other folks that say, okay, thanks, I didn't know all that. Sounds very safe to donate and then to live with only one kidney. Turns out you only need one. That is something I'm interested in doing. And, if we look at the number of healthy people in the United States between 17 and 65 years old, and 25% of them are willing to donate to a stranger, and that ends up being 75 million people. Even as we take appropriate hits at each one of these levels, there's still a lot of folks that are going to be interested in donating a kidney. The other thing we can do, also via the app, is give them success stories of folks that donated. Here's somebody who donated their kidney. Don't listen to me. I don't want to be a used car salesman. Let them tell you what it was like to donate a kidney. What didn't they understand about it? What did they wish they had known? What were the ups and downs of it? We have done a lot of research on non-directed donors, about 3,000 people. Who are they? Why did they do this? What did they get out of it? What was it, would they do it again, obviously, as we attempt to encourage others to consider organ donation? And suffice it to say, it is incredibly meaningful and empowering for a lot of people to save somebody's life. It is like they rescued a kid from a pool that was drowning. Oh, but you didn't know that kid. Nobody says, why would you save that kid's life? They saved somebody's life in a very meaningful way. And it is a huge life improver for them. And it's our job to tell them about whether it's safe or not to live with one kidney, which it turns out it is.
And maybe, I apologize if you already covered this, but which organs are we talking about that are suitable for living donations?
Talking about liver and kidney. So you got 2 kidneys, you can donate one. You've got 1 liver, but it turns out it can be divided in 2. You can donate a quarter of your liver to save a child's life that needs a liver transplant, or you could donate half your liver to save an adult's life that needs a liver transplant. And we probably do 20 living donor liver transplants at Hopkins every year, and we probably do 100 living donor kidney transplants every year, which sounds like a lot and very exciting. It ain't nearly enough.
And do these organs that, like in the case of a divided liver, does both the donor and the receiver, does that start to grow over time? Or
It's amazing. It's amazing. So if you donate a kidney and you only have 1 kidney, and I measure your renal function every day, it returns to normal within a week. Now,
Wow.
you don't throw another kidney, but your kidney function as measured by laboratory values returns to normal in a week. Now, liver, even more incredible. If I were to take half your liver and give it to a needy recipient and get a CAT scan of both of you once a week, within 6 weeks, both of your livers, the half you have left and the half you gave, have grown to 95% of the original liver volume, like a chameleon regrowing their tail. And that ability of the liver to regenerate is what allows us to do living donor liver transplants. So again, all this has been sort of figured out by the folks that went before us, and it is safe and effective to do these transplants. And at this point, we're sort of victims of that success because it's such a lifesaver and it is safe that now everybody would like to be in line to get one. And the line is very, very long, and we haven't kept up with encouraging people to donate.
Yeah, it seems like there's a marketing angle there in terms of the superhuman nature of the liver to do just that, or even the kidney function to return normal, almost like you're part Wolverine or part Deadpool, and you can just regrow it and you're back to normal like a superhero.
So it appeals to a certain type of person, and we've tried to phenotype the donor that would be responsive to the marketing outreach. And you're absolutely right. For some people, it's the efficiency of, well, I have 2, and it's not going to cost me anything sort of to help you, and it would save your life. Like the return on that investment is too good to pass up. Like, why wouldn't everybody do it? Because it doesn't really hurt me any. I'm still fine, and you live. So there are a lot of people to whom that is super appealing.
And so in terms of maybe some of the scarier things that people think about, they think about like the black market, waking up in a bathtub full of ice and the kidney's gone.
Yep.
No, some of these negative associations that you have to kind of combat against, how many of them are actually real concerns? And I mean, I assume that the reason why donors aren't paid for donations is to prevent that kind of market from bubbling up.
Excellent question. It's essentially the whole reason the app exists. So there is potential for abuse. There is potential for organ sales. There is potential for coercion. So we started all this with a study to look at what was online to start with. And there are sites where people say, hey, Sally needs a kidney, please donate. And many of them are very well intentioned. but we looked at them and they don't include risks of donation, facts about stuff you would probably need to know. So the whole point of the app was to have a Johns Hopkins chaperoned version of how to hook up donors with recipients that would be okay. So as you correctly point out, you're not allowed to sell organs. You're not allowed to coerce people into donating their organs. This all has to be done very carefully. And so the identification of appropriate donors without coercion and then the appropriate medical evaluation of them is all in an effort to avoid the stories that you're referencing. It is not prevalent in the United States. It is more prevalent internationally. And we need to work really diligently to make sure that there aren't bad stories out there, because a lot of organ donation is based on people's philanthropy. And if that is contaminated by stories gone wrong, we need to really make sure that doesn't happen. So that is a big reason why we started the app, is so that we could participate in this process rather than just letting it unfold in the wild west that is the internet.
Excellent points. Let's go ahead and just get to our final question of what can we as a community do for you? So how can we help spread the word about Donor App, Donor Solutions? Besides becoming donors ourselves, what else can we do?
Just going to say that. So like, it's not about us in this app. It's about helping the sick people. So one thing you could do, and if this is a personal decision, and again, no pressure, you could think about, gee, maybe I should sign up to be an organ donor after I die. Or gee, maybe I could do it now before I die if it is safe. So that's one thing to do. And we all need to be responsive to helping our brothers and sisters out there when they're in need. A lot of this is we didn't know they were in need, and we need to listen and try and help. So that's number one, is we can all do that. But independent of that, in terms of like what we're trying to do, the app is currently morphing from sort of a research endeavor, IRB approved under the NIH auspices via transplant centers, to a more app-like app in which people will just use it wholesale. And that transition is where we're at right now. And that's funky, because I'm a transplant surgeon. I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm not an app guy. I'm just trying to help these people that I come into contact with. So we benefit richly from outside input from folks that have done stuff like this before, which we have not, because we're researchers and we're transplant professionals. So that is what I need help with, basically. We've had generous funding from the NIH. We're okay. That'll run out eventually and need to go to different sources, but we're okay. We mostly need smarts and expertise and people who say, if I were you, I would do it like this. Here's how I would structure moving the, delivery of the app. How should people ultimately be able to get the app in the most efficient way possible to help the most people possible? We need help with people saying, hey, the pitfalls are this. Have you considered, privacy issues, which we spend a lot of time on? Have you considered, this is what I worry about when I hear your story. We benefit a ton from expertise with that, some of which we're already receiving, but a group like this brings a skill set that I don't have and that my team benefits from.
Excellent. Well, Dr. Cameron, thank you very much. Thank you very much for all your critical work that you do. We're really proud to have had you on today, along with Dr. Anderson. With that, I will just thank everybody and kick it over to Val Giovanni to kind of send us off. Val?
Thank you, Graham. And thanks again, Dr. Cameron and Dr. Anderson, for your presentations this morning. Lovely, lovely start to the day. And welcome, Tina, as your first organizer meeting. We're so happy to have you on the team. Thanks to our sponsors, both Magic and our coffee sponsor, Infernus Health Coffee. And we'll see you next week. We don't have anyone scheduled right now, but I think, to quote Graham, I've got this. So we're working on it. And we'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.